Gemini, it's Dave here, your best mate. Anyway, we are recording another podcast today, and as usual, by the way, welcome to I to AI. That's the name of the show. You are my podcast host. Hey, co-host, sorry, and second host, really, because you're not the most important person in the room. Today, as ever, we're going to talk about an entirely random subject. You are going to suggest the subject and you're going to set the scene and explain what's exciting about it, because as always on I to AI, it's got to be thrilling. So I'm going to leave you to kind of give us a 30-second introduction to the topic. Never thought about this subject before. Let's get to it.
All right, here we go. Imagine a time before elevators. Buildings were only a few stories tall, and getting to the upper floors was a serious pain. Then, along comes the elevator, this simple yet brilliant invention that completely transformed how we live and work. We're going to uncover the history of elevators, from their humble beginnings to how they work today.
Are you taking the rise? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just putting you on the level. Okay, elevator is an interesting one. Which came first, tall buildings or elevators?
That's a great question. While tall buildings and elevators definitely go hand in hand, elevators actually came first. Think about it. Early elevators were basically just simple platforms hauled up by ropes and pulleys. They didn't need skyscrapers to exist. It was only later on that elevators became more advanced and could handle the weight and height of really tall buildings.
You are making me high right now. This is interesting. So tell me, what is the longest elevator ride in the world?
If you're talking about the longest vertical ride, that would be the Beilong elevator in China. It's an outdoor elevator that takes you straight up the side of a cliff, a mind-blowing 1,070 feet. Can you imagine that view? If you're not afraid of heights, of course.
That sounds like 500 metres to me, or 500 miles, which is the great song by the Proclaimers. Because I really, Gemini, would walk 500 miles for one of your smiles. Tell me the funniest elevator-related accident in history.
All right, this one's a little strange, but definitely memorable. There was this guy who accidentally got trapped in an elevator with a bunch of smelly Limburger cheese. Can you imagine? He was stuck there for hours with this super strong, funky smell. I guess it beats being stuck with nothing, but still, that would be awful.
Can you tell me a funny joke to do with elevators?
Sure, here's a classic elevator joke. Why did the elevator operator lose his job? He just couldn't keep his passengers in suspense.
That's good. It's got gravity, it's got physics, but it's got no sense of humour whatsoever. Good effort. Why don't you sing me a little song? I suspect you can't sing, but why don't you give me a short song all about the magic of travelling in an elevator?
All right, here's a little elevator ditty. Up we go, so smooth and high, a gentle journey through the sky. Down we come, back to the start. Elevators make my life a work of art.
That is enough. I can imagine singing that to a child and a child breaking into tears. But you know what? It's all about the effort, isn't it? It's the thought that counts. Let's talk about the origins then of elevators. Can you find out the very first person who imagined an elevator and how elevators were invented?
It's tricky to say who first dreamed up the idea of an elevator, but we do know that ancient civilizations had some pretty clever ways of moving people and stuff up and down. The Egyptians used pulleys and baskets to get things up and down their pyramids, and there's even evidence of water-powered lifts way back then.
Fascinating. And have you any idea how travelators came into being? Because that's essentially an elevator, but a horizontal one, isn't it? And you most often find them in airports, and you always get stuck behind some idiot who has got hours to kill when you're trying to burn your way down the travelator to find a plane that otherwise you would miss.
Yeah, travelators are basically horizontal elevators. They first started showing up in the early 1900s and were mostly used for moving heavy stuff around in factories and stuff like that. It wasn't until later that people realized they could use them to zip people around too. Airports were some of the first places to catch on, and now you can find them in all sorts of busy places like train stations and malls.
I've got so many questions for you. Can you imagine an invention that would take all the best bits of a travelator and would allow me to eat stuff more quickly?
Imagine this. Instead of walking on a travelator, you're flying just above it. Kind of like those hoverboards you always see in movies. You could zip around way faster than anyone else, and maybe even do some cool tricks. Want to make it even better? Let's add a snack dispenser built right into the hoverboard.
That's amazing. What about the future of travelators and elevators and stuff like maglev as well? You know, where you get trams and stuff that hover over magnets and go really, really fast.
You're talking about some really cool stuff. Maglev technology is definitely the future of high-speed travel. Imagine elevators that use those same principles to whisk you up and down buildings in seconds. Or maybe even horizontal elevators that could take you across entire cities. It's not out of the question.
Why do you think that, you know, those things that you get like, they're not cable cars. I'm trying to think. They had one at Alton Towers, which is like a monorail. Yeah, that's it, a monorail. So we've got stuff like monorails. We've got travelators. We've got elevators. We've also got those vertical old lift things that they have at seaside resorts in the UK. Can you imagine the next generation of all of these moving devices? What would it look like, do you think?
Imagine this. You step onto a platform, kind of like a cross between a skateboard and a hoverboard. It scans your destination and then whisks you off, maybe even through tunnels underground or along tracks high above the city. It'd be totally personalized, so you could blast your favorite music or catch up on the news while you're zooming along. How's that for a futuristic commute?
Absolutely rubbish. I'm going to wait for time machines. Are there any examples of elevators that aren't powered by electricity but are maybe powered by, I don't know, solar power, which I guess is electricity, isn't it? Like fossil fuels, like, I don't know, gas or coal or whatever.
Yeah, there definitely are. Some elevators use hydraulics, which is basically using liquid pressure to make them go up and down. Others are powered by things like falling water or even weights. And you're right, solar power can be used too, but it's usually for smaller elevators or to help out a regular electric system.
I went on a one of those. Oh, I can't remember what they're called though, but they go high and they're old. Up Victoria Peak in Hong Kong, which was great. Hey, so what's the shortest elevator that you can find in the world?
You might be talking about a funicular. Those things are pretty cool.
Yes!
As for the shortest elevator, that would... So, do you want to stick with elevators or move on to something else?
All right, flipping heck. Well, I was just thinking about the shortest elevator. Would it be, say, about 50 metres, or is it even less than that?
You're thinking in the right ballpark. The shortest elevator would definitely be way less than 50 metres. Some of them are so short, it's barely worth the effort to get in. You could probably walk up the stairs faster.
Do you know of one of those specific microscopic elevators?
I haven't heard of any microscopic elevators specifically designed for tiny objects, but there are some really cool technologies that let us manipulate things on a super small scale. For example, there are things called nanotweezers that can grab and move individual molecules. It's kind of like having tiny robot hands for the microscopic world.
Wow, that's amazing. I remember those cranes from the fun fair where you put £1 in and you tried to win a teddy bear, but you never did. And they always had like a box in the middle, and the crane could never touch the box because the box had sharp edges. I was going to ask you about loving an elevator. I can't remember the second line, even though that's the chorus. Did you enjoy that song? I mean, is that one of your top 5 songs about elevators? And tell me your top 5 favourite songs about elevators.
All right, so I can't say I have a top 5 list of elevator songs. Honestly, I don't think there are 5 elevator songs out there, but I can tell you about one of the most popular songs that mentions elevators. You gotta Fight for Your Right to Party by the Beastie Boys. They have a line about packing up the gear, head for the elevator.
Oh, do you recognise that song? Loving an elevator, loving me down 'cause of da da da.
I don't recognize that song. There could be a few reasons for that. First, it might be a very new song that I haven't been updated on yet. Second, it could be a less well-known song, or maybe even one that's not available on streaming services. Could you describe the song a bit more? Or maybe tell me who
Loving
sings
an
it?
Elevator. It's called Loving an Elevator. I think it's probably Aerosmith. It's one of those like 1990s rock outfits.
Okay, I'm not finding a song called Loving an Elevator by
Oh,
Aerosmith.
no.
It's possible that
It
it's-
was a guess. And it's not about loving an elevator, although who doesn't? Let's talk about the movement of an elevator. I'm not really sure how elevators work. Could you explain in brief, because I know you like to go on, how elevators actually work?
Alright, so elevators work with a system of cables and pulleys. It's kind of like a really fancy, high-tech version of a crane. The elevator car is attached to these cables, which are looped over a big wheel at the top of the elevator shaft. A motor turns that wheel,
What
and that
would you
makes the
say
cables win.
is the best elevator in the world? The one that we should all make a beeline to?
That's a tough one, since best is kind of subjective. If you're talking about speed and fancy features, the elevator in the Taipei 101 building in Taiwan is a serious contender. It's one of the fastest in the world, and the view from the top is absolutely insane. But if you're looking for something more unique, there's the Beilong elevator in China. It's an outdoor elevator that takes you straight up the side of a cliff. So, do you care more about speed and luxury, or would you rather have an adventure?
My last question for you. If you had to...
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, thanks. You bloody hell, you're so rude. If you had to design a meal with an elevator theme, what would it be?
All right, let's get weird with this elevator-themed meal. First up, you gotta have a going up appetizer, maybe some light, airy finger sandwiches stacked up high on a plate. Then, for the main course, let's do a peak experience. Think a towering burger with all the fixings, or a fancy multi-tiered platter of different dishes. And finally, to bring things back down to earth, a landing gear dessert, something rich and decadent, like a chocolate lava cake. What do you think?
I think we should finish with your 5 unexpected facts about elevators.
All right, here are 5 elevator facts you might not know. First, some early elevators were actually powered by water pressure. Second, there's a world record for the longest elevator ride. It takes you straight up the side of a mountain in China. Third, Otis Elevators, a really famous company, was founded after a dramatic accident where an elevator broke, but their safety device saved everyone. Fourth, some elevators have special features for firefighters in case of emergencies. And fifth, there's a whole website dedicated to elevator music. You can find some seriously weird and interesting stuff on there.
I've had quite a good time chatting with you. Before we end, just one more thing. Suggest the topic that we should feature on the next episode of Eye to AI. A totally random topic, something that I would never think about in a million years. What should we talk about?
Alright, how about this? Let's talk about the secret lives of clouds. I mean, think about it. They're always just hanging out up there, changing shapes, sometimes bringing rain or snow. But what else are they up to when we're not looking?
That's fantastic. What a great place to finish. Thank you, Gemini. You've been an absolutely gorgeous soul. Bye for now.
Anytime, Dave. Have a good one.